sentence to start the meeting. I thought like welcome, welcome, welcome is a good way to do it. Why not? So welcome, folks. Anyway, at the beginning we don't have viewers, so only people that watch recording will see this crappy like welcome message. So yeah, I'm not gonna even introduce you, Jonas. Let's just give us like a few minutes for folks to show up. It's actually good I have this whatever the name is, because when I'm yawning, I can hide and yawn. It's 6 p.m. here, by the way, folks, here in Europe. The same in Poland and the same in Denmark. I guess. Is it?
Yep, it is 6 o'clock. I actually tried to what's it called, to get up to join the first meeting you had this morning, but I forgot to set my alarm clock, so I woke up at like way too late.
The meeting was at 10 a.m., dude.
I know. I know.
I'm not even asking what
No.
happened, because I had some interesting accident in the during the night, but that's not something that can be shared publicly.
Let's not get into detail then.
No, I mean I would never. I would never. Even though it's tempting, but no, not on official AsyncAPI account. I have some rules. Okay, who's watching us? Say hi in the chat, please. So we know we have at least one human and we can kick off. Kindly, please. Oh, we can share a chat. Wow, can you see it? Jonas?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Hey, Maciej.
Nice.
Nice feature. Maciej, can you hear us well? Like you enjoy our voice and the quality. And yes, we have delay.
Why?
I think that's how tech works.
Ah.
I mean, he's about 100 kilometers from my location, so I guess sound travels. So
A trip around the world and then back to a few hundred kilometers from you.
yeah. And now, like, the most problematic thing is that we asked one of the trolls, and I have no idea if it's honest or not. So we have to. I'm gonna check on Twitter on my own. I mean, we trust you, of course, Maciej, but not that much. Okay, Maciej, thank you for giving us another good reason to not trust you. Because I checked and on Twitter we're audible. But anyway, nice to see you, as usual. Okay, let's wait a bit more. Jonas, by the way, can you see the same as I can see? That like in the upper left corner, I see a time like clock ticking and the. Okay, so the counter of people that watch us lies because it says 0. But it looks like Maciej is watching on YouTube. Okay, so we should probably start. Hey, the darkness. Thanks for watching. Okay, so yeah, let's start the kick off the meeting. To not keep our guests waiting. But let me kick off saying that it's a for those that watch it for the first time, have no idea what AsyncAPI is. So it's a contributor first meeting that is designed to um, approach a community members, AsyncAPI community members that would like to start contributing or would like to extend the contribution they already did. So we can join the meeting live, ask any questions you need, answers to basically get help in first contribution. Benefit for you is you have direct access to people that know project very well. And for us, the positive is that we learn from your questions and we know in the future what kind of onboarding materials we should prepare for new contributors. That's the vision and the idea. Next topic, you probably noticed there are those, like, I still have problems with those fingers. Like at the bottom right, we have a few logos of different companies. It's because we now in October, we have a AsyncAPI hackathon that runs throughout the entire October. And in November, we're going to have a conference, AsyncAPI conference. And for for these two events, because we're gonna have some hackathon prizes, we're gonna have some swags. We had to like subscribe to some software provided to us by Linux Foundation. So these are some costs that had to be covered, and for that we asked the different companies to support us. And I'm happy to share that we already have 4 platinum sponsors of the events, and it's IBM, Ably, WSO2, and Solus. So thanks a lot to the sponsors. And now, core of the meeting. So basically, if you know Async API good enough, and you know that we have some community meetings. Like yesterday, we had a community meeting that we usually have every 2 weeks, and there were some questions about um, contributing to some specific libraries that we maintain at Async API. And it was a question about Modelina, and there was a question about Glee, GL GLEE, Glee. Um, and Jonas, that is a maintainer in Async API, agreed, or not even agreed, volunteered to join us and explain how to contribute to these 2 libraries. So that's why Jonas is here. Uh, do you want to like say something, Jonas, like something exceptional?
No.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's what I actually expected. So please, whoever has some questions, some specific questions about Modelina or Glee or any other stuff related to contribution to Async API, we're watching a chat all the time. The live stream goes to YouTube, Twitch, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and Twitter. But as far as I know, we can interact in the chat only through YouTube and Twitch. So we see both in the UI. So whenever you're gonna ask questions, we're gonna see them. We're like you can see now questions and comments from others. But until we have any specific questions, I guess we're gonna talk about something in general. So let me hide the chat overlay for now. And Jonas, like up to you, which project you want to start first, Glee or Modelina?
I'm more
Anyone?
rusty in Glee than Modelina, though. So probably Modelina.
Sounds fair. I was sure anyway that you're gonna choose Modelina because it's your
Yeah.
baby.
At the moment, it is. That's true.
Uh, no comments, no further comments. So yeah, the best is if you can introduce Modelina to folks watching the recording or not, watching us now live.
I can. So Modelina is a library we developed to... Okay, it actually all started when I wanted to create a template or a generator, code generator, for the NATS protocol. And one of the issues that I quickly found was that whenever you define something with a payload in AsyncAPI, transforming that payload into a data model that, for example, a class or an enum, is quite tricky when we talk about JSON schema. And we wanted to lift that load off the shoulders of template owners by providing a library that can do this for you. This means that you abstract that complexity away, while still providing you with the customization that you would want in your project. Because maybe you want accessor methods, maybe you want the properties to have public visibility instead of private, maybe you want all of your classes to extend from a base class, maybe you want, whatever you can think about actually. And it was created with extensibility in mind in terms of what it can take as inputs as well, meaning that it's not only taking async API documents, it's also taking open API documents, raw JSON schema documents. It could be extended to even more inputs than that. So that's basically the core.
To add some more context, so basically, like to summarize, like in AsyncAPI, we have a project called Generator, which is basically a tool that allows you to write your own templates, like project templates that you can generate out of the by consuming the AsyncAPI spec document. You can generate whatever application you want, or documentation, or markdown file, whatever. Basically, whatever you need. And Modelina initially was just to be a plugin for Generator, and like the main intention was like that it can generate data model for you. But then, like as Jonas mentioned, it evolved into something much more, not only AsyncAPI related.
But yeah, that's the core of what Modelina is to take any type of input, abstract it down to some generators that can generate the data models for you, and then it can output in all languages, is the idea. Or at least that's the end game goal for the library, or vision for it.
Before we go into details, maybe it's a good moment to share the playground for Modelina.
Oh, right. I have to clear my screen first, though.
Do it. And by the way, hello to everyone that just joined. Thanks for joining. If you joined just recently, so some additional information for you, and actually something that I forgot to do at the beginning, but I discussed it with Jonas. So basically, like these contribution first meetings, they're twice a day, every Wednesday. And today we figured out in the morning session that it would be nice to out of the box share a link with people that would like to join us live, like here with video and audio, not just in the chat. So I've just sent a link to the to our Restream studio, because we got a subscription from Restream.io because we're open source project. So if you don't want to just interact with us through chat, you want to join us live, feel free to go through that link. Okay, so like I see you started sharing. Let me enable that. Okay. Go ahead.
So if we look at, for example, so on the website we have a playground that integrate Modelina directly on the website, which means that you can take, for example, an AsyncAPI document. And just to mention, the other inputs are not supported in this playground yet, so you cannot use an open API document, even though the underlying library supports it. So for example, if you look at this AsyncAPI document that describes a Streetlight API, which uses the protocol MQTT, and it has a channel defined called light measured. This light measured channel then has an operation publish, meaning that others may subscribe to this channel and get this message. Now the message payload is then defined as JSON schema. Everything within this, or I guess it's our async API JSON schema variant, but JSON schema more or less. And this means that whenever this payload reaches Modelina, it creates this class for Java, for example. But there are other variants as well, other use cases where you might need some additional functionality for the generated classes. This could, for example, be JSON annotation, meaning that it generates these JSON property annotations, meaning that it can map the JSON properties accurately. It could also be that you want to override the generic hash code functions and to string functions. Maybe you don't want to use list, but rather the simple array type. The same with equals functions. And all these, each language has their own set of defined variations that you can use, or extensions or customizations, however you want to call it. For example, for TypeScript, instead of having a class, you might just want an interface. And the same for C#. It also has equals, and then, for example, customized serialization methods. For example, if you want to transform it from JSON and back. So this is the basics of Modelina. If you have multiple channels defined and multiple payloads, it of course generates all the data models for to use.
And just for the record, these customizations, or rather configurations, they're built in, right?
Yes, many of them are built in, but you can provide your very own as well, meaning that you can write it from scratch.
And we're talking about presets now, right?
Yes, presets. So if you look at the generator code tab, you can see that it provides for the C# generator, in order to include this serialization functionality, you have to provide it with the preset that actually enables this output. Here, instead of using one of the predefined presets, you can actually define your own from scratch, but it's not something that's well documented at the moment. So it's still like a bit of a black box.
Which is a good part to contribute to.
Yes, exactly. And I guess that leads to, so how do you contribute to Modelina? Well, perfect question that I don't have the answer to. Only you can answer it. So the way that I see it, for example, if I had to start over, for example, start contributing from scratch without any knowledge, it would depend on, in my case, I would have a use case for whatever I'm contributing to. For example, I would have a side project that needs this exact functionality that isn't there at the moment. This was how I started back in, 2019, I think, where I needed a code generator for nets that wasn't there. So I started figuring out how to do that. Figured out that the generator and parser had some, let's call it, issues that needed to be fixed before I could actually do it. And that was just how I started. That it was not, I won't say goal oriented, but I had a reason to do the contribution. If you would rather just contribute to the project without having a side project, that's completely fine as well. I mean, it's your time, right? So whatever you want to spend your time on is yours to give. If that's the case, I would probably follow good first issues. Start with that. Learn how to use the libraries first, and then find the issues, or what's it called? Play around with it, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like what I can add to this, like especially the workflow where you don't have any specific goals to have in Modelina, to have Modelina support, and you just want to become a maintainer or just a contributor. So one thing is like good first issues, but also there are some, let's say, like hidden options, something that we did not yet document, but I think it's like sometimes I think like it's obvious, but might be that not everyone know it. Like the best way first to learn the library to be able to contribute it to it is what I would do is whenever there's an issue, when there's like maintainers know some documentation is missing and it needs to be added, that's one of the really best ways to start contributing, because like to write, like to explain the functionality, you really have to understand it. So you really have to go into the code, read it, talk to the maintainers to understand, and then to create a, like once you create the document, you really know a certain area of the project very well. The other way is tests. Um, One of the best ways to learn the project is to through writing additional tests. With Modelina, you're lucky enough that we already have a coverage reports um, integrated with the project, so you can see the coverage, and you can see what parts are not yet covered by tests. So definitely you can jump in and provide the missing tests, and that's how you also learn the functionality. And third um, is that we, in case of the async API libraries, we use Sonar Cloud for additional quality checks on the projects, security, but not only, like code quality, code smells, etc. and we run Sonar Cloud on pull requests, but it's only catching the issues that were found in the project on a pull request level. But it also runs in the background, always on default branch, and it's sometimes you might see that there are no issues with the project, but because they added some rules or something, you'll suddenly see that some project is having some issues, some quality issues. And sorry, I'm laughing because I see Jonas is laughing probably at the conference website. Don't even start that. Don't even start. um, so is there Modelina there? Is Modelina there? Is there Modelina there?
I hope so.
I think we have search at the top. You can. Oh, okay. So for example, in case of Modelina, you can see that there are some code smells. Small things, but it's like with good first issue. So if you don't find any good first issue in the project, and it might happen, we don't have too many. Like we really started just recently adding the good first issue label. We usually do this as a bigger action whenever there's a Hacktoberfest starting. So if you find a project like Modelina and some other project and you want to contribute there, and there's no good first issue, then jump into the Sonar Cloud, which is a hidden knowledge so far, and you can find some issues there and try to fix them. Especially I saw that for Modelina there was some issues related to cognitive complexity of some function, and I don't think there's a better way to learn the project than try to solve also a complexity in the code. So to summarize, as Jonas said, good first issue, then the documentation, tests, Sonar Cloud, and that's for starter. And then just complete few tasks, and then start implementing some feature. But of course, you can jump into feature directly. This is how I started with parser.js and generator. I think I started with some bug fixing and then just features introduction.
Maybe just to emphasize, like, good first issues are only well-described issues, meaning that all the other issues that you see that don't have the label good first issue is only because it hasn't been described. It hasn't been described to an extent that, unless you're familiar with the code base, it would be an easier to solve the issue than any of the other. For example, for this issue, I have defined what the code changes are, as well as basically step by step, and what to do if you get stuck, which also means that it depends on how much help you want from us, because some get the kick out of solving complex stuff or figuring it out on their own, and some don't want the help. So for example, here you have everything lined out, what's a task that has to be solved step by step if that's your thing. But also to emphasize any of the other issues that you see. For example, you see this issue and you might want to solve it but have no idea how to get started. It's just as simple as asking whether we can clarify it to an extent that you can solve it. So even if issues are not labeled for good first issues, it doesn't mean that you can't take them at all. It just means we haven't taken the time to specify it enough where it makes sense for you to take it. So if you want any issues that you find or features you want to work on, we are here to help you or guide you if that's what you want. Because that's also another option if you find good first issues boring, so to say.
Exactly. And you either just put a comment in the issue, or you can join Slack where we are pretty active. And now I'm gonna share a link. Um, so you can join Slack and also ping us on the tooling channel, or how to contribute channel. Better, I think, how to contribute. But yeah, we're gonna answer on both. Now, I think we have Nadir here joining us live. So give me a sec. I will enable him. Hey Nadir, can you hear us? Nadir? No, we can't hear you. And I'm answering, like, for others, I'm answering to like Restream has some private chat. So Nadir just writes to me and asking if we can hear him. So no, Nadir, we cannot hear you. Okay, so in the meantime, when you try to enable audio, going back to Modelina, I think it would be also, I mean, at least from my perspective. Yeah, no worries, Nadir. So just take your time when you're setting up audio, and we'll just continue. And when you start speaking, we will know that you had success here. So yeah, no worries. Um, so we covered like basics, like how to contribute, but these rules are kind of, they're the same for any project. Basically, like one of our goals here at AsyncAPI is to grow the contributors base. So whatever project you pick to get help with, we're always gonna be there for you. Sometimes at the same day, but sometimes in a week or two. Of course, depends on the load, but yeah, we're always helpful. And regarding Modelina, I think it's nice to emphasize, because like Jonas explained the project, the goals for the project, but like maybe summarize that there are like two core, at least from my perspective, how I see Modelina, that there are two core areas to contribute. So first is the input, so to say, and the second one is the output. Um, because as Jonas said, like we have multiple inputs, but anything can be an input. And we can have multiple output languages. We don't have all, but yeah, can you, Jonas, maybe you can share a README again, because I think you have some how to call it, like tables with list of supported formats at the moment.
How can I share it?
Share the screen. How can you share it?
Right, true. I moved my screens around again.
Hi guys, are you able to hear me?
Hey, Nadir, yeah,
Hello.
we can hear you. So before we
Thank you.
like jump into specific questions, like I'm not sure if you could hear us. We we wanted like to summarize the two core areas of the functionality contribution. So Jonas will just share a screen in a sec. Actually, he did. I just have to enable it. And then let's continue the discussion.
Yeah, so this is the current features overview of Modelina at the moment, which is that we support both AsyncAPI, OpenAPI, and JSON schema as inputs. And then for outputs, we have for Java, TypeScript, C# /.NET, Go, and JavaScript. And then each of those output languages, of course, has their own variation of customization. The same that I showed before, for example, including hash code to string in Java, Jackson annotations, and in TypeScript on marshalling functions, and the same with indentation types and size is also something that can be changed. But that's the current features of Modelina at the moment. One thing I would like to note is that even though that the library is usable, it is under version 1. And I do know that there is some refactoring coming up that's going to change the entire generator side of things, because at the moment it's too complex to be a language contributor, for example. I want to make it easier from the perspective of customization and languages, so that abstraction layer is more precise. And we haven't reached that level where it's not changing each and every single day, more or less, or each week, at least. So what you see today might not be the setup tomorrow or next week. And there will be breaking changes within it. So that's just disclaimer.
Thanks. And also something to add, like the AsyncAPI initiative, we're pretty flexible if it comes to setup on a specific project, if it comes to the maintainers. And I discussed with Jonas before the call. If you want to, for example, become not just contribute, but like become a maintainer of some parts of the project, that's also completely fine. So if you don't want to maintain Modelina per se as a library, but you would like to contribute, for example, Python code generator, and you'd like to not only contribute it, but also maintain it in the future and become the maintainer of the project, that's agreeable, like normal
That's
path,
doable,
agreeable, whatever.
Yeah.
English word we use for it. That's the path to become a maintainer in the project, because like GitHub allows this kind of granularity in the code owner's file, that you can become just a maintainer for a specific part of the project. Same if it comes to presets. You don't even have to really have the presets in the project. You can have them as a standalone npm package first, use it with Modelina, and then have discussion about like maybe pushing it into the core. So I guess like, yeah, we covered like the basics we had in our head, like, and thanks Nadir for waiting that long. Welcome on the stream. Thanks for joining. And I guess you have some questions to Modelina.
or not. It's also fine if you don't.
Yeah, but Nadir, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. It's just that is this streaming and contributing is new for me. I have an app that gives me a break every like 10 minutes, and it was basically running on, so I couldn't touch the keyboard. But yeah, my questions go in the form like, well, thank you all guys for including me here, and my questions go into the form of, I want to contribute, and I want to be, I want to also be part of the project. I don't know what would that mean in the future. I would love to be a maintainer, but let's just I would like to be I would like to have a jump start into the how to solve an issue. There's a hackathon issues list, hacktivist, I don't know what the name of it, Hacktober, something like that, issues list. In this list, there's plenty issues of Modelina. Some of them are in taking it into moderate, taking it. Well, they are seen as in a moderate effort to make them through. So maybe we can solve some of one of these issues. That would be great. Or another one. I don't know.
Jonas, you want to answer? I'm gonna.
Yeah, sure. So what Nadia is referring to is that we have this issue overview Excel arc of issues that has good first issues or are labeled for Hacktoberfest. And there is quite a few issues created for Modelina specifically. For example, let's take just a random one. So, for example, show how to change the generated indentation type and size. All these issues have very specific tasks that I showed earlier as well. Means that in case, depends on what you want or how you want to solve it, I give a little hints into like what code needs to change. As well as a little bit of hinting towards how to get started in terms of duplicating this folder, rename it to this, and then update any relevant information based on this code. So for example, if we look at the template that I'm referring to, we have in Modelina a switch to something called, I'm not even sure it's called that, but our naming for it is just user-centric documentation. And in that regard, we have examples for all the use cases, meaning if you want to generate using, for example, Swagger documents, or if you want to generate models based on AsyncAPI files, or if you want to provide custom logging, we have examples defined for all those cases. Meaning for, let's say that you want to generate TypeScript interfaces. This means that for TypeScript, we have this option where you can generate interfaces instead of classes. This is basically that example. And if we go into it, we can see that it has, for example, a test file. Then it has the regular file that's run. And then we have some package information. So if we look at the actual implementation, we can see that we have defined the generator that we want to use. Then we have defined an input. In this case, it's just this JSON schema draft 7 document. And then we have the generator code that generates the models. If you then look at the test itself, we use snapshots to make sure that the right output is what's it called, as expected. And what this issue asks is to duplicate this folder. It's just a template. Change it to match this, and then of course update any relevant information. So what does that mean specifically? So after you duplicated the folder, it means that you have to adapt the documentation based on this use case, where it wants to show how you can generate models and change the indentation type and size. So this means that you adapt this documentation and then link the example based on how we do it previously. It goes into detail here how to change it as well. But this is how to get started with one of the issues that's labeled in here. And the reason why it's complex to say how you do it is because it depends on your situation and it's dynamic, as I said before. Maybe you don't want all these tasks specified. Maybe you just want the simple task given and then solve it on your own. Maybe you do want extra help. Maybe you want to look at some of the examples that we already have. It all depends on you as a person.
You can also, because some of those example related tasks were already solved and merged.
Yes.
So like instead of reading all of this, you can also just open the PRs that were merged, so you exactly see what files were changed, and even comments from Jonas on like what was wrong, what should be fixed.
Yeah, for example, here, no, this is the wrong one. This doesn't mean it's not that one. What is fixed? That one. I actually think I forgot to update some of the issues, but for example, if you look at this is how they solved the issue. Then we can go in to see, okay, so he changed the actual example documentation or the user-centric documentation, and then links to his example that he created. Then he updated the list of examples. Then he adapted the README in the example template to match the issue that he solves. The snapshot, of course, is updated. This doesn't change at all. This is still the same test, more or less. I just think the title was changed from the template. And then down here, we can, for example, see that he uses the Java generator and then the description preset. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, how it was defined in the issue itself. For example, I gave this code right here and the input. And now I can't run that. And then he adapted the template or the example template to reflect the generator and the input. And then all of the other things are the same, basically. And then change the package file as well. It sounds like a lot of steps. I promise you it's not. It's just a lot of files that has to be changed. But it's little things. The only thing that's changed from the template to this one is the naming here. This. And then the documentation. And that's it. That's all the code that's changed. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Nadir, or if you want to go into more details or have any questions. We can hear you, by the way, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. My computer is having a little bit trouble running Docker with apparently with the meeting. Actually, I'm following this. I started to follow this the development guide that you have in the docs folder. So I started to run Docker, and I would be having my environment set up first, and after I don't know if that's the correct way to start, because you showed a new another guide.
So I think you're referring to down here we have, okay, maybe I should share my screen. I think you're referring to this contributing guide, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Development, the
Development
MD file that you have in docs.
Right. So Docker is, you don't really have to use it unless you wanna, what's it called? The only reason you would use Docker, and it hasn't been well described at all, is for running the test suites or building Modelina. Because the environment setup in terms of the black box testing, that might be one of the more complex things to set up, because you have all these different output languages that you have to compile to. For example, you have to have .NET installed, you have to have Go installed in order to run the black box tests. But for contributing first, you won't need the black box tests, because you don't change the actual functionality of the library, so you don't have to test how it generates to all the languages. So the only relevant documentation at the moment is the environmental setup, which means that when you fork the library and clone the library down, all you have to do is install the dependencies, npm install. Then I would probably make sure all the tests pass before starting to change anything. Means you run the script called npm test. This can be done without any extra setup. And make sure that the formatting is correct as well, meaning that the linter goes through. And once those two things are passed, you can start changing stuff, because then now you have the same baseline as everyone else. But are you talking about the Git workflow? Is that what you're more worried about as well?
Well, I thought that I would need to follow this environment setup, but if not, then I will just try to stop Docker as it hasn't finished starting.
Right.
And then install dependencies as you just mentioned. Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I would highly recommend for the very first contribution, just follow the task list that's provided for one of the good first issues. And if something comes up where you're like, I don't get why this is happening, or this setup doesn't work, or whatever issues you may have, feel free to ping us both in Slack or in the issue itself, so we can help you out. Because I think once, like, the first contribution is always the worst one, because there's all these new Git workflows. How do you do a PR, depending on whether you've done it before, of course. How is stuff reviewed? What comments am I getting on the code? All these kind of different things. So yeah, highly recommend just taking the task list that's provided for the issues and then try and go through them. And even if those task lists doesn't make sense, please ping me, because it's 99% sure that you can follow it and it would work, but there's still the 1% that it won't. And maybe I missed a description for something or a step that didn't make sense.
And I would add one more document that I highly recommend you. I just pasted it in the chat. It's a Git workflow that Jonas mentioned. So if you don't plan just to do one contribution, but want to contribute long term, it's like all the contributions, doesn't matter if you're a maintainer or not. All of us, me, Jonas, and you in the future, we all contribute through a fork. We don't work on an upstream repo. We always work on a fork. And to have this setup really nice and seamless, so you don't even feel like you're working on a fork, we have this Git Workflow Guideline that explains how to set up your fork first, before first contribution, so it's much easier to work and be always up to date with the default master branch we have in the upstream. So yeah, this is pretty useful in my opinion. And long term, like when you do some first good issues and you still like the project and you really plan to become the maintainer, and like especially in case of Modelina, not sure if you could hear it when Jonas was talking about it, but like you can clearly see that Modelina is not supporting all the languages yet. And even if it supports some language, it does not necessarily mean we feel like an expert in all the languages, even though Jonas is. But I'm pretty sure he would be happy if anyone would like to just support and maintain a given output, like Java or as I said, like, so from if it comes to existing outputs, or Python or any other language for the missing outputs. So that could be an area to explore to become a contributor. So you first, in case of so it's I would say it's a Modelina specific path. First, familiarize with some basic contributions. If you're still okay with the project, then consider just becoming a maintainer for just a specific part of the project. And then if you like it even more, expand and take over the world. That would be the path I recommend. And obviously that's not something we have anywhere documented. That's why we have these contributor first meetings, to figure out things with you folks.
It will definitely be more specified, better documentation on how to contribute once the library is stable enough to be version 1, which is kind of what I'm waiting for, also in terms of not chilling down the amount of things I'm doing on the library, but just so it can be used in a production, or not even just production, but really scale up in terms of contributing. Because we know there won't be any immediate breaking changes, and it's stable enough to create any type of features for it. Hopefully January.
What year?
I won't say.
But like, just to clarify, because you scare me when you say refactoring, like, let's say I want to add, even though I have no idea about Python, it reminds YAML. But anyway, it's I want to contribute a output for Python. How much of my work will I lose, or how much will I have to be involved in the refactoring when we talk about the refactoring that you plan?
The thing I'm planning to refactor is the actual abstracted data model type that you receive in the generator, which means that it's something that even if you contribute to it now, I would rewrite it at the same time. So it wouldn't mean that you had to rewrite anything. You will just get the new updated model because it's an easy rewrite. In that sense, it just changes the entire data model. Once we agree on whatever data model, like that structure, whatever that is, it's a discussion that will come up within the next few weeks. I just need to tinker a bit more before making the suggestion, because I don't want to change it again.
So basically, the refactoring doesn't block you from contributing. You just have to be aware that once Jonas does the refactoring, and until then you become a maintainer of a given output, you will simply be pinged on a PR to review that specific part that Jonas touched and that you maintain.
And this is also the reason why there isn't that much documentation in terms of how you create new generators, or how do you create new input processes, for example, because it's not stable yet, that specific documentation on what's the structure. But that doesn't mean you can contribute. It just needs a bit more explaining to do from our side.
Thank you, guys. I would like to. I have three comments basically, and I will have to do them quickly.
Go ahead.
First, thank you for the Git workflow. I was cloning from the main project, so I forked, and I will be moving my remote. Second is, and I would love to know if what would happen if I'm developing a new tool. A first approach for one of the discussions that we are having in the brainstorming, and I don't know if it will match with Modelina at all, or in some part. I don't know. What would be the best approach here to incorporate new features into Modelina that are taken from a side development project, or even more, what would be the process to incorporate a new tool into AsyncAPI? And third is about this new maintainer role. I would love to be the Java into the Java side, but we'll have to wait. I would like to be more focused on the issues now, but I would love to be part of it in the Java side.
Awesome. I mean, I guess Jonas is happy. But yeah, so if it comes to becoming a maintainer, yeah, like as we said, like start contributing, and then let's continue discussing like how later jump into the maintenance of the Java output. And regarding the, because I think you're referring to one of the ideas you posted in the discussions on community. So for me, not sure how about you, Jonas. For me, it's hard to really answer your question, like how to incorporate stuff that you do on a side project into the Modelina, because I don't really know. I didn't have time to look into your idea and understand its relation with Modelina. Um, and I would answer before I hand over to Jonas to answer. I would answer differently. Like we we don't have yet any strict rules in AsyncAPI, like any strict validation of what projects we agree to have in AsyncAPI initiative. It's all discussed case by case. So for now, without knowing your idea much in details, I would answer um, if that's something similar to Modelina, but it's not the same. It's just solving a similar problem, but in different ways. It doesn't have to be incorporated in Modelina. It can be also a standalone project in AsyncAPI. We just have to keep on discussing in the ideas section, see how community is interested, and then go ahead with development. But that's, of course, like I said, I assume some things without really knowing the idea. And like Jonas, do you have something to add to this one?
No, not really. I mean, it's the only thing that separates what needs or how things are integrated into each other is just a feature request away. I mean, that's how things are implemented, or not even implemented, but what is focused on. It's based on the features that are requested from the users of the library. So if you think that you have some tool that needs to be integrated into Modelina, or Modelina needs to use it, for example, then it's just a matter of creating an issue for it and explaining the use case and why we need it. And that's for all the repos we have, all the libraries. If you think that something needs to change, we need some improvements there, or whatever it might be, it's just explaining why that change is needed.
Yeah, I like how you phrased it, like feature away, because that's basically how it works now in other projects. Like as an example, I can give you in Generator a few weeks ago, we just got an issue feature request from MuleSoft, and after discussing in the issues, it was clear that like there's no need to start any project inside AsyncAPI organization, because for them it's going to be much flexible and much better if when they run the project outside, because technically it's possible, and it's MuleSoft specific, so it's not much vendor agnostic to be in AsyncAPI. And so we had an open discussion on GitHub, and that's that's basically what Jana said. Like if you give some time to your idea, you see what people think about it, and you want to start working on it, and you think it should be part of Modelina, then just open an issue in Modelina and let's discuss. Does that make sense? Nadir? not sure if you have some audio issues. So in the meantime, like because we just extended the meeting a bit. So here in Europe it's 7 p.m. So we definitely should finish. And before we finish, I have to of course share my amazing graphics. Ta-da! And ta-da! Just a reminder. October is the time of the hackathon at AsyncAPI. November, we have a conference, all the details on the website. And I'd like to thank you to all the platinum sponsors we have so far, which is IBM, Ably, WSO2, and Solus. Thank you, folks, for supporting the initiative. And yeah, next contributor first meeting is next Wednesday, 8 a.m. UTC, and then again next Wednesday, the same Wednesday, because it's twice a day, 8 a.m. UTC and 4 p.m. UTC. Everything in AsyncAPI calendar. Nadir, do we have you back with us? Okay, I think we lost you for good. So anyway, thank you a lot, Nadir, for joining us live and asking all the questions. I have to say that I'm gonna have to watch the recording because we discussed many important things that really have to end up in a future contribution guide, like explanation how to contribute, like really some stuff that we just have in our heads and we have to have it written. So thanks a lot, Nadir, and Jonas. Thank you for joining me. We have to do it more often, maybe next week again.
Maybe.
Actually, we have to because we didn't touch the Glee at all.
No, that's true. I forgot about the library.
But maybe Franito is back tomorrow after his holidays. So Fran, we're calling you out. You have to join this contributor first stream next week. And
that's even better for me because I can't remember anything about Glee. It's been too long.
I know the name is cool. And the icon, the logo is pretty Glee.
It's been a while since I touched it, so.
Okay, so thanks again. Thank you all who were watching that long. It's fun as usual. So let's keep chatting offline and see each other next week, Wednesday. Hasta la vista.